220-222-7, good job, guys. Getting ready to move everything into my igloo so we can start getting the gold. At the end of the season, Shawn Pomrenke won $5.4 million in gold, which was his biggest gold haul ever. Some people packed up and went home, but Shawn kept jumping through the cold water, risking everything for one last score. It wasn't safe or easy. It was rough, cold, and dangerous. How, though, did he make such a mess into the best win of his life? Pay attention, because this makes him one of the world's biggest miners. The cold chase for one more haul. Everything screamed chaos from the start. The temperature kept going down like a bad stock, boats were getting frozen in, and ice was building quickly. But guess who didn't get the message? Shawn. The man chose to go anyway, even though the wind was blowing hard and the water was rough. That's what most people call risky. He says it's work. But really, when does grit become just plain stubborn? Before we go any further, you should know that what Shawn did next wasn't just brave. It was almost careless. And that's not the only move that will shock you. As the bay turned into an ice block, some miners decided to call it a day. At the same time, Shawn jumped on his boat like he had something to prove. He wanted more than just a little more gold. All the gold was his. That sounds like greed. That's because it is. Things were at stake, and he wasn't going to leave with half his money. It makes you wonder if it was really about the gold or about being the last person left. Also, let's talk about the boat. It looked like that thing had seen better days. Still, he was riding it out one more time like it was a very important horse. The weather was terrible at night, dropping below 15 degrees. The water around them was freezing. That's not a job. That's a penalty that pays off. He kept saying this was his last chance, too. There it is, the spoiler. He had said that before. There were problems, like pins breaking and tools breaking like twigs. The guy kept going, though. After the first fall, most of us would have called it, but Shawn didn't. He pushed harder and deeper into the freezing hell, after another pile of dirt because he had dreams that it was full of shiny yellow stuff. Maybe a bit dramatic. Not very smart. The big moment then came, the last weigh-in. He began picking up pieces of gold one after the other. 20 ounces, 30, and then 100. The pile kept getting bigger, like a cheat code for a computer game. It weighed more than 200 ounces when they were done. It was worth more than $400,000 just for that batch. Over 3,000 ounces, or more than $5 million, for the season. Yes, you did read that right. The question is whether we should clap or shake our heads. Because this is how it works. Smart does not mean successful. He made a lot of money, but how much did it cost him? The danger was very high. He might have sunk, frozen, or broken through the ice. Also, let's not act like he did everything by himself. He was frozen with a group of people, but it always comes back to Shawn, doesn't it? Hi, Mr. Gold. Like no one else did anything. He knew this haul was the biggest one yet. An awful lot of people cheered and backed up. Why not? It's hard not to brag when you win a lot of money. It still smelled a bit like despair, like a man who was after more than gold. It could be fear, pride, or both. He said he felt good about next year by the end. He is, of course. With that much money, anyone can feel like they can't lose. But trust was built on lucky breaks and close calls. That isn't really solid ground. The sea might not be nice next season even though it worked out this time. It doesn't matter how many ounces you caught last year to the ocean. Also, it's important to note how many bad things had to happen before the good ones. Early on, he had setbacks, and things actually fell apart. At times, he could hardly keep it together. But now everything is happy and gold. It's funny how money can make people forget about things that go wrong. It's almost like the pain is worth it if there's a big, shiny reward at the end. He says summers like these make you feel good about yourself. Perhaps. Or maybe they make you think you're safe when you're not. When you think that way, things can quickly get dangerous. Being sure of yourself is fine, but being cocky is what gets you sunk. The act itself is another thing. Shawn was tall and acted like he was a star by himself. Let's be honest, though, he's not the only one going through rough patches. A lot of other people are working hard without the cameras or the attention. This time, Shawn's risk paid off, which is different. But how many close calls does it take before you lose one? In the end, he did something really cool. But don't get too excited about the gold dust. It wasn't clean. It wasn't safe. It wasn't even very smart. It took guts, was risky, and to be honest, a little careless. It did work, though. That's what everyone will remember until the sea stops being nice again next season. But Shawn wasn't always chasing gold through dangerous ice. He used to be a boy growing up in the cold who learned how to work hard from his dad. How Gnome brought up a gold digger. Leave the shiny boxes behind. There is more to Shawn Pomrenke's story than just gold, dust, and fame. It starts in Nome, Alaska, a small, cold town that is better known for its frozen toes than its golden dreams. Thanks to his dad Steve, Shawn grew up with dirt under his nails. Steve dragged him into the dirty world of gold mine. He didn't get to have fun like a teenager. Instead, he chased rocks with shiny spots on them. Early on, he got used to early starts in the dark, heavy machinery, and the sound of hope rattling in dredges. In those days, high school was more than just reading and writing. He was studying and sucking mud from the ocean floor at the same time. That work ethic stuck. With the help of his dad, he started a business when he was in his 20s. Their main tool was the Christine Rose, a big, clumsy dredge. Even though it wasn't pretty, that boat was very good at digging through mud to get to the good stuff. At first, people laughed, but then they saw gold coming in. That gold glitter caught the attention of TV makers, and his work on the decks became a must-see drama. Come in Bering Sea Gold. People who watched didn't just see weather and broken parts. They hired a man who could be angry one minute and calm the next. He was called Mr. Gold by them. But they really showed a man who wasn't just after money. He was after something to show. But there's a catch. Life doesn't get changed. What was going on behind the cameras was Messier. He was in trouble with the law. Not just once, but several times. Being drunk and driving. Yes, that did happen. It also dented more than just his truck. The family brand was hurt by his name and the news stories about him. He kept jumping back into the water, though, because he was determined to dig himself out of trouble the same way he digs for gold. He also really broke his back. After getting hurt, he couldn't work for a while, and that dredge didn't run itself. Surgery and getting better were awful for a guy who couldn't sit still. But the pain didn't keep him away for good. He got back on the boat and kept going until he got paid. When we talk about payday, his bank account looked pretty good for a while. People said that he was worth about $3 million after getting checks for gold and TVs. Money, on the other hand, never gives the whole story. It did not bring peace of mind or fix plans that did not work out. The giant dredge was a big plan that didn't work out. He had big plans. He wanted to make a digging monster that would help them get twice as much gold. But big dreams cost a lot of money. The whole thing soon began to sink. Not in water, but in bills, delays, and way too many issues. He had to take the plug out. Then there's his family. Still, when not being filmed, but being real. He has kids. Dylan was one of them and even went on the show. A new group of people learning how to dig holes in the ocean floor. Nobody really knows if this is what Dylan wants, even though it looks like what he wants. People have high hopes when their dad is Mr. Gold. Of course, we can't forget about Steve and his son. That father-son pair, rough seas. They made something strong together, but they didn't always hug and shake hands. Steve came from the old school of sweat and gut it out. Their fights weren't just about mining, even though his son was trying to bring things up to date. They had to do with power. He tried to stay ahead even when he wasn't on the boat. He looked inland for gold so he wouldn't have to deal with seasickness and weather. It was a good idea. Every shift meant less time at sea, less control, and more to show on land. There was less risk from bad weather and breakdowns. After everything, you'd think he'd rest, but he didn't. The man was always looking for new chances. Also, he talked more about how to mine properly. Not just to make money, but also to save the earth. To clean up his act, he is reducing the amount of trash he makes and taking care of the water. It could have been shame. It could have been growth. But no worker, no matter how smart, can change the price of gold. They bounce around like they're in a bad mood. You can be rich one day and have rusty gear and a crew that wants to quit the next. He had to keep track of time, numbers, and stress. Miss one piece, you've lost a lot of money. He also tried to stay up to date on technology. New tools, machines, and maps that work better. That stuff does help, but it doesn't fix bad habits or relationships that aren't stable. He knew how to mine better, but it wasn't always easier. Take a moment to talk about drama. It was great for the show, and he was right in the middle of it. There are competitors, bad deals, and workers leaving. There was more than just the sea moving. He knew how to make people mad and stick his heels down. It looked great on TV. Ill feelings were also made. He kept teaching younger guys the ropes and showing them the risks, though. Giving something away that wasn't just money and letting other people try, fail, and try again might have been the best thing about him. But it cost a lot to do all that work. You get chewed up when you mine. It's not just his back that's getting hit. People get tired from working long hours, being cold, and being stressed out. It became more than a rule to be safe. It turned into survival. It's also your job as the boss to make sure your crew is safe. Even with everything, he didn't give up. It didn't matter how hard it got, he kept looking for gold. His story isn't a typical hero's tale. It takes a lot of hard work, risk, and grit. He is always pushing, sometimes smart and sometimes careless. The sea around Shawn was slowly breaking apart while he was going through hard times. All of it changed when it melted. The Bering Sea between Alaska and Russia looks like a cold, empty sea, but it's not at all peaceful. It was alive once. It's got fish, whales, seals, birds, and more. There should be a lot more talk about how bad things are getting now that they are. To begin, the ice is melting too quickly. Like really fast. Not long ago, this sea had a thick layer of ice over it every winter. Lately, there hasn't been much. There was less than 5.5 million square miles of ice in 2025. Since people began keeping records, that's the lowest it's ever been. The ice can't stay because of the strong winds and weather that are making it move around. Everything is messed up without that ice. Even the water and the food chains are alive. Now picture yourself as a crab, a snow crab, to be exact. It's cold to you. You need that ice to stay alive. You can't live your life the same way now that the ocean is getting warmer and the ice is skipping town. It's not just crabs who feel sad about that. It's also bad for people who fish for them. They had to stop all crab fishing in 2022 because the number of snow crabs had dropped so much. Nothing like that has ever happened. People lost their jobs, neighborhoods were hurt, and no one knows if those crabs will come back. Then there's the mess with overfishing. For too long, people have been taking too many fish out of the water. Also, it's not just one kind of fish. All the other species in the food web start to break down when one does. Birds do not have anything to eat. Bigger fish eat tiny fish until they are gone. It throws everything off balance. Rules and limits are in place, but they aren't always followed. They don't always go far enough either. Do you want to talk about something gross? There is trash and poison in the sea. It all ends up in the water, plastics, chemicals, and oily gunk. Fish eat very small pieces of trash. Birds get caught in trash. Things like those aren't just bad for animals either. They get eaten by other animals and then end up on people's plates. That's not only sad, it's also risky. But who is going to fix it? Not nearly enough people. And now for a problem that sounds like it would come up in science fiction. Moving in from other places. Strange animals can now live in the Bering Sea because the water is warmer. There are things there that were never meant to be there. New species are competing with native species for food, room, and the chance to stay alive. The new ones win most of the time. It's also not helpful when ships bring in bilge water from other places. Since there aren't any tight rules or guards, these silent invaders will keep coming. We're not done yet, though. It's also making new routes for big ships because the ice is melting. When there is more traffic, there are more chances for oil to spill. Whales and other animals that use sound to talk and find their way are having a hard time because there is more noise beneath. For example, bowhead whales have to avoid ships and have a hard time hearing each other. What does it mean when an oil truck leaks in the wrong spot? Things might break down even more quickly. Dangerous algal blooms are another strange and scary thing. These are poisonous blooms in the water that happen more often now that the ocean can get warmer. They make fish sick. They make crabs sick. They can even make people sick. There are times when you don't know what's wrong until someone gets sick. Without better ways to keep an eye out for these blooms, more damage will happen that we won't be able to stop in time. Seeing animals die in the sea was already bad, but now it's hurting the people who live close and depend on it to live. We change with the sea. There are also changes in the sea itself. Not just on the outside, but also inside. Ocean currents are getting messed up by rising temperatures and changing salt levels. Those currents move minerals around and keep the food web healthy. Everything that depends on them has to change with them or die. No more fish, no more birds, no more of anything. What changes when animals move farther north to find colder places to live, eat, and raise their young? More than just the animals themselves. No one comes back to those who live near the sea and fish for food for their families and friends. We're not just talking about jobs here. These are customs, ways of life, and ways of living that have been passed down a long time. People still cook fish the way their grandparents did, watch the waves, and teach their kids to respect the ocean. It's not just what people catch that changes when the sea changes. It makes them different. Imagine that everyone in your town makes a living by fishing, and all of a sudden, the fish are gone. Now the water is warmer for them to swim in. Or maybe they were never seen again. There's more to it than not having any money coming in. It's about the community's heart being broken. They don't have any stories to tell. They don't know how to teach. Kids don't need to stay. This is going on now in some places near the Bering Sea. Also, more people will feel it if the ocean keeps shaking. Everything is linked. People who live on the sea get sick too. But this isn't just one small thing. It's not just one mistake or bad habit. This is more like a big storm where lots of different problems come together and hit each other. There is less ice than ever before. There are not enough fish left. Crabs are going away. There is trash all over the place. Strange animals that have never lived in cold weather are showing up all of a sudden. Big, loud ships are going through the water, which is upsetting people and animals. The sea is getting dirty, and algae is growing in places it didn't used to. Everything is happening at the same time, and it's getting hit from all sides like a wave of damage. It looks like the sea is being pushed from all sides, from above to below and across. The people who live nearby feel trapped, like they can't get out of a building that's on fire. There is a big change in the ocean. The water is warmer, the animals are worried, and it's not the same. The place seems to be under attack, but not by weapons. Instead, it's being attacked by slow changes, bad decisions, and too many people who don't pay attention to the signs. It's clear that something big is going away when you look at it all together. Do you think Shawn Pomrenke is just lucky, or is there something fishy going on behind that $5.4 million haul? Please let us know what you think and don't forget to like and follow for more.